All right, let's talk about your homework from part one. For number one, I chose the letter A to represent the statement the USS Arizona was sunk in the attack on Pearl Harbor, and M to represent the statement the USS Missouri was sunk in the attack on Pearl Harbor. And you'll notice that I've expressed both of my simple statements as affirmative statements, even though the statements in the original argument are actually negative statements. And that's because I want to always express my statements affirmatively, so it makes it easier for me to make sense of what role tilde is playing in a given statement. All right, so there's two ways we can actually represent this argument. The first way is using our our premise as a wedge statement, as a disjunction, and our conclusion as a dot. And when we do that, we see we've got lines 1 through 3 with a false value on the conclusion, okay? And so we look at each one of those lines to see if on any of those lines the premise statement is also true. Line 1, the premise is false, but on lines 2 and 3, the premise is true. And that proves this argument is invalid, and it proves on lines 2 and 3. Okay, another way that we could have represented this argument is by using a wedge statement as the premise statement and a wedge statement as the conclusion statement. Okay, so either way is perfectly fine. You'll see that when we do that, we still have false values on the conclusion on lines 1 through 3, and once again, invalid because of the true premise values on lines 2 and 3. All right, number 2. You'll notice something important here. In the original argument, it says, if racial quotas are not adopted, then prior discrimination will go unaddressed. And again, I chose to represent those statements affirmatively and then to negate them in my truth table using tildes. When I do that, I have two false values, one on line 3 and one on line 7. So I examine the truth value for the premises on lines 3 and 7, and I find that because my second premise is a tautology, it's always true. Really, the only premise I need to look at is over here, the dot. Is it true on line 3 or 7? No, it's false. And that proves that this argument is valid. It's impossible for the conclusion to be false and all of the premises to be true at the same time.